Today I'm with one of the top boxers from Canada, Kaitlyn Clark. How are you doing today, Katie?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Katie, forgetting the coronavirus for a moment, you box for Canada. Where are we at with your amateur career?
So forgetting the coronavirus, the goal for my coach and myself is the 2024 Olympics, to gold medal there and then take it to the pro ranks after that. So I'm currently in a non-Olympic weight class on the national team, but now given the coronavirus, we decided to make the move because I was like, this opens up an opportunity. To me, the coronavirus is an opportunity, whereas for a lot of people it's not. But yeah, not including the coronavirus, it was originally, okay, we'll wait till 2024 to we'll make the move after the 2020 Olympics because there should be some retirements within the country, but also it gives me that extra year of international experience at a non-Olympic weight class, and then go from there. But the goal's always been 2024. Now there's a possibility for something next year. So yeah.
And how popular is boxing? Not just amateur boxing, but boxing in Canada.
I would say it's a bit of a niche sport. There's pockets of our country, like our country's so big geographically, right? Think about it. I always tell people typically I tell people in the UK that it's a shorter flight for me to fly from Toronto to you guys than it is for us to fly from coast to coast in Canada. So our country is huge geographically, and there's little pockets of boxing fanatics all over the country. So there's a huge boxing scene in Quebec. Amateur wise, we've had a few world champions come out of there. Ariane Fortin is one of them. She was a female. She went to the Olympics in 2016. And then in Toronto, there's a pretty big amateur scene. I live in Kitchener, which is just outside of Toronto. Boxing is huge here. And then the rest of the country, it's a lot more sparse. But in terms of amateur boxing, I would say because hockey is our number one sport, you don't typically hear a lot of kids or parents wanting to put their young kids into boxing the way you would if you were in the UK. So it's different, but it's growing. It's starting to make a bit of a comeback. And you're now seeing parents are now seeing the benefits of putting their kids in boxing, and more kids are wanting to box.
You have got high quality there, obviously yourself, but as part of these videos, I do have a quick look at Canadian boxing or which country I'm doing. And I watched about a 75 kilogram bouts between Mo Zawadi and Leclerc. I'm probably saying that wrong, but that was such a high quality bout, great bout.
Yeah, Mo Zawadi is I've known Mo since he was 11 years old. I love that kid. He's a man now, but he has just exemplified what hard work does, and especially in a system like the Canadian system, we just don't have the same international opportunities because we are so far away from pretty much the rest of the world except for the United States. So just the development that you see in the boxers here in Canada and how good we do get given the lack of mobility. If you're in Europe, right, you've got a lot of countries that are really close where you can literally drive to. For us, it's a full week away to go to one country to plan for a tournament. So the quality of boxing in Canada, that upper echelon, it's high, and there's a bit of a discrepancy between that upper rank and then number two. That number one and number two spot, typically there's a bit more of a separation than a lot of other countries. But I would say our number one person they're usually pretty great.
from Sarnia in Ontario. Put your tourist guide hat on. Can you tell us a little bit about what Sarnia is like?
So Sarnia is a very small town. Like, it's got 70,000 people, which, I mean, to other countries where their population isn't that big, that might seem like a lot. It's not. It's small town. Boxing there, it's not huge. Like, a lot of people, I think there's one boxing gym there now. It used to be a lot bigger. Actually, so Steve Molitor was an IBF world champion. He has from Sarnia. So there's been a few notable people from Sarnia. I know my coach back there. He competed at a few world championships as an amateur and was quite good. So in terms of boxing, it's not that popular, but the town in general, like, they're very supportive. They always support me. They help me any way they can, even though I don't live there now. They just, the media's always really backed me up, and they're very supportive of any athlete that comes from there. There's been some really great professional hockey players to come out of Sarnia. I think right now, within the last few years, we've had like 4 different athletes go to the Olympics. So, and from a small town, like, that's huge. But yeah, so Sarnia creates some really great athletes, and they always make sure that they back them up. So it's a great.
Looks like it can get pretty cold there as well.
It gets a little chilly. But I mean, I used to live in Ottawa as well. Like, I went to university in Ottawa. So when you think about where Sarnia is in comparison to Ottawa, it's a lot further south. So maybe it'll get to like minus 15 Celsius, which to you guys probably seems like freezing. But when you live up in Ottawa, a minus 32 day in February is normal.
Wow.
So Sarnia was not nearly as bad.
Now, you started boxing at 18. What made you walk through that first gym door?
So it's a bit of a funny story. Like, I always love hearing how people got into boxing. Typically you'll hear like, oh, my dad boxed or my grandpa boxed, so that's why I decided to do it. And then you hear these really like off the wall weird stories that you're like, oh wow, okay, that's a strange way to get into boxing. So that's my story. I was a dancer growing up. It was the first sport I ever got into. It was the first thing I ever fell in love with was dance. And so naturally I watched this TV show called Dancing with the Stars. The UK iteration is Strictly Come Dancing. So anyway, so I was watching it, and there was this woman on there, and her name was Layla Ali. I didn't know who she was. Okay? I was 15 years old. No idea who she was. Didn't know who Muhammad Ali was. Like, I played sports, like I played basketball at a decently high level. But boxing was never a thing in my family at all. Like, I had never even watched it. I'm pretty sure I remember like flipping through the TV once, and I saw it on TV when I was a teenager, and I was like, oh, that's boring, and changed it. Anyway, so I was watching this show, and Layla Ali was on it. She was so just elegant and beautiful, but her physique was insane. Like, she's still in great shape. Her physique was incredible, and she was so confident in herself when she would speak. She just had such conviction in everything, and like didn't really care what other people thought about her. But then when she was on the dance floor, she was just beautiful and so elegant and flawless. And to me, it was that like clash between these two worlds where, very masculine, like very typically masculine qualities of like that confidence and just knowing really who she was and being powerful and having that physique. And then this very feminine side of her. And that drew me in. I was like, this is what I want to be. I want to be like this woman. This is crazy. How, like, I didn't even know a female could really be like that. And so I looked her up, and I found out that she boxed, and I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do too. And then I asked my parents, and they said no, so I waited till I was 18. Then I went to the boxing gym, and I was horrible. I got beat up my first time sparring, then the rest is history.
You say that about your parents. Boxing's not for everybody, is it? And are they on board now? Can they watch the fights now?
So it took a while. My parents, they were supportive, and like, they didn't necessarily like that I wanted to box. It's not typical, especially not in North America, where your daughter especially is going to be like, hey, mom, dad, I want to go fight people. It's not very normal here. So I think it was a bit of a jump for my parents to really get on board with it. I think it would have been a little bit easier if it was my brother who wanted to do it. But no, they supported me in their own way. Like, they made sure that when I started, like, they bought me most people, when they start boxing, they don't have good equipment. My parents bought me like the top of the line Adidas headgear because they're like, if you're going to spar and take this serious, we want to make sure you have the best equipment. So in hindsight to me, I'm like, that is pure support right there. Now now my mom, so my dad actually passed away a few years ago. But he was very supportive of it. I would go back to Sarnia and I'd run into people and they're like, your dad talks about you all the time. He's so proud of you, which was really nice to hear. And then my mom now, like, she loves it. She'll call me and she'll ask me how my training's going. And, you know, she's just really proud of me. And she still can't quite watch fights. Like, it freaks her out. She cries sometimes when she watches them, even though I'm winning. Because it weirds her out. But she's very proud of me. And, like, I have a great support system in my family.
Now, you've reached the national level, so you're obviously very, very talented. Did it come natural at the beginning?
No. Short answer is no. So actually my best friend now, we met when I started boxing. We met about almost 10 years ago, and she was a boxer, but she was already at that national level when I was just starting. And she's still much smaller than me. She fought at 51 kilos. And she used to beat me up. Like, and the other day we were actually chatting about this. We became friends about 2 years ago. But we were chatting about this and she's like, you know, of everyone who came through the gym doors, Kaitlyn, I never would have guessed that you would have been the one who, one, stuck with it, but two, accomplished more than anybody else. And to me, it didn't really come naturally. There are aspects of it that did. Like, my footwork is, I would say the strongest thing about my boxing is my movement, my footwork. But that comes from my dance background where body awareness is key and I understand rhythm and flow, which a lot of people have a hard time grasping. But then there was other things that my shoulders, I was so tense in the ring. Like, my shoulders were up like this, like, for the longest time. And then figuring out distance to me, that took until like 5 years.
You know, I've recently interviewed Al Mitchell, who's Michaela Mayer's coach. And he said exactly the same things, that Michaela Mayer, obviously one of the top boxers in the world at the moment, and he said everything she's got is through pure hard work. It didn't come natural.
Yeah, I would say that's the same thing for me. Like, to this day, I still work so hard. I make sure that I surround myself. I've always made sure in my boxing career that I surround myself with people who are way better than me. Because number one, I never want to get complacent with where I'm at. But number two, that way it's like I always have that reminder of, okay, you might be good, but this person's better, so you can be better too, and hard work will get you there. But yeah, no, it's definitely all hard work. Like, and I think that that's the case with a lot of high level boxers, is that it didn't necessarily come naturally. Because typically when we're gifted at things, right? Like, just think about something that you're really great at naturally. You don't really want to put the work in because it's like, well, this is boring. I'm really good at it, so I want to go find a challenge. And that's what really drew me in, was that I wasn't good at it.
I've heard you say that before, that hard work will beat talent every day. And that's true. Yeah. I'm a coach and I can see that.
Yeah, every coach I've worked with, like, I'm pretty sure they'll unanimously agree that I work harder than anybody in the gym, and I carry that outside the gym too, where it's everything I'm doing. Like, I'm so diligent with every aspect of my life, because I realize that 1 or 2 hours in the gym doing my boxing, that's such a small portion of what you need to do to be successful. It's the hard work the rest of the day that actually gets you there. Because anyone can go to the gym for an hour or two, but it's the other 22 hours in the day. What are you doing? And yeah, it's that hard work that's definitely gotten me to where I am and will get me to where I want to go.
And which club are you at the moment, Katie? And what are the coaches like there?
Yeah, so currently I train with Sid Vanderpool. So that's out of the Sid Fit Health Center in Kitchener, Ontario. So I came to Sid actually I think my whole boxing career is like such a roundabout thing. Like, nothing really like lined up perfectly. Nothing has really ever made sense. But basically I came to Sid because one of his pro girls wanted to spar with me. And so I started, I would drive 2 hours to go to his gym and spar with her. I didn't know who this guy was. Couldn't have identified him. Couldn't have picked him out of a lineup. And the first time I was there, it was a more pro gym, like, so a little bit harder, I guess. And nobody really talked to me. I went by myself, didn't have a coach, just kind of went, sparred, left. Then the next time I was there, this guy came over and gave me some advice. And he seemed to know what he was talking about. So I was like, okay, I'll listen to it. And it worked. And then slowly, little by little, this guy would talk to me more as I would go. And then I found out that it was actually Sid. And I didn't, so Sid as a boxer himself, he had an amazing professional career. He had 39 fights, 35 wins. He fought Bernard Hopkins for a world title, fought Jeff Lacey for a world title. He was the #1 ranked by the IBF as a middleweight. So phenomenal career. And people like begged to train with this man. I didn't even know who he was, which is so like almost like ignorance, but it was accidental ignorance. And then once I found out that he was great, I didn't want to look him up because I didn't want to have like rose tinted glasses and think that he knows things because he was a great boxer. And then he saw me fight, he saw me in a fight and he messaged me. He's like, hey, I think I can help you just with the mental aspect. He's like, you have the physical keys to get there. He's like, there's a block up here. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I started driving, and then, you know, I realized after I won nationals because of his help, and I was like, okay, I need to make him my full-time coach. Like, and I had never chosen a coach before. I think in the amateur system, a lot of the times it's you go to the gym in the city that you live in, and whoever kind of is willing to work with you, that's who you work with. So this was the first time I'd really chosen a coach. And then finally, I still actually haven't watched any of his fights. But I've like started. I know how great he is now. But he's phenomenal. I have never met a smarter person in boxing. His communication style, he's so calm, but it's like when he needs to be intense, he's intense without raising his voice, which I appreciate. I have nothing but good things to say about him. And I remember one day we were working on he was refining my jab cross. Okay. Like I've got quite a bit of experience, and now we're going back to basics, reworking everything. And I just looked at him and I'm like, how did I get this far without you? And he laughed, and I was like, no, that's a good thing. Like, this is amazing. The fact that I got to this point without you, imagine how far we're going to get now that we're working together. But it's a great environment. I love it. My training partner is Mandy Bujold. She went to the Olympics in 2016 for Canada. And yeah, so it's a great place, and I absolutely love it there. And the environment is so positive, which I think is key, especially at this part of my career. And yeah, they just support me with everything they have.
How have you managed that, Katie? Because it is a tough, very, very tough sport. You know, things don't go your way, decisions don't go your way. You get disappointments, you get successes, and it's a roller coaster ride, isn't it, boxing? And you've got to maintain that commitment, especially at the level that you're at. You can't take it easy because you know everybody else is pushing themselves hard. How have you maintained that commitment, and how difficult has it been?
I think, you know, if you would have asked me that question like 5 years ago, my answer would have been way different. So I was actually diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis back in 2014. And so for people, a lot of people don't know what it is. It's an autoimmune disease. So it's not like arthritis like a normal person has from like overworking a joint. Mine's basically my body, my cells are attacking themselves, and it leads to inflammation, joint pain, like a whole bunch of other things. So that really changed my perspective on what being tough is, because I used to just be that athlete where you told me that, like you said, jump how high, and I would just do it, and I would like work to the point of exhaustion, and then kind of being diagnosed with that, figuring out how to work with it. It's like now we train smarter and not harder. And so I think in my maturity, like that mental toughness piece has come from just realizing like you don't just need to like put your head to the wall and move forward. You can be mentally tough and also work the smartest way to get there. And that's what will make those really hard days a little bit more tolerable. Like they're still not easy, but they're more tolerable. But I do think that like, you know, that mental toughness piece for me, like just from my personal life, that's where I draw the strength, is that, you know, I have RA, like this is what's gonna there's a high probability that it could eventually cripple me by the time I'm 50. And I'm okay with that, because I know that like what I go through my personal life is way harder than anything I'm ever going to go through in that ring. So really, if 2 hours of training is uncomfortable, like, God, I wake up most days and it hurts to walk because of my RA. So like that's uncomfortable. The training is easy compared to that. So I think that mental toughness piece for me is, you know, it's almost being in the ring sometimes is easier than just like getting out of bed some days. So like I would say I definitely have a different perspective on that than a lot of other athletes, just given my scenario. But it is a tough sport. But yeah, I just draw on my personal life and my own, life experiences, and it makes it feel a little bit less difficult.
And you've met some inspirational legends, haven't you? You've met Sugar Ray Leonard, Roy Jones Jr., who's my favourite fighter. What was it like to meet them, and who do you look up to?
Oh, meeting them was unreal. I actually, so funny little story about Roy Jones. So I don't get starstruck by people usually, and I wasn't starstruck by him either. But he came to this event in Ottawa, and my coach got this call, and she's like, "Kaitlyn, do you want to go hang out with Roy Jones at the hotel, like in the lobby? We can just go sit with him." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And it was this really big fundraiser we were doing. So we're talking, and people are asking about his boxing career. And I'm thinking in my head, like, this guy does not want to talk about his boxing career. He talks about it all the time. So I look at him like, "Yo, you got any more music coming out? Like, Can't Be Touched, that song is dope." He laughed so hard at me. And like, then there was a magazine about the event, and he was like, there was like this tiny picture of him on the cover. And he was supposed to be on the actual, like the full cover, but the photographer got this really good photo of me and they put it on the cover instead. And so my coach gives it to him, and I like grab it, and I autographed it for him and gave it to him. And I was like, "Here, let me give this to you." He's such a good sport about it. I was just teasing him. But then and then I was like, "Yo, can you sign this for me too?" And he signed one. But meeting those guys, like I think the biggest thing was how humble they were. Like, that's to me what was inspiring, was that these guys have been at the top. Like, they have so much money. They have all the success in the world through hard work. And they're so humble, and they're just normal people. And that's inspiring to me, because I'm a normal person who's doing extraordinary things. So if they're a normal person and they're doing that, I can do that too. So yeah, meeting those guys was pretty phenomenal. Sugar Ray Leonard actually gave me some feedback after my fight. Some compliments, some things he told me I needed to work on, which I respected that more than anything, because anyone can compliment me. But if you're willing to provide me with legitimate feedback, that's incredible.
It's getting that constructive criticism from the right people, isn't it?
Yeah, and like being able to weed out like what is constructive criticism and what's just criticism. And I think other fighters, especially people who've been to that level, they understand what that is, and they know how to supply it a little bit better than just like a person who maybe hasn't been to that level yet. So yeah, getting that constructive feedback from someone who has been in the ring with the best and was the best, I still remember exactly what he told me, and I still like replay it in my head every once in a while, and I'm like, "Okay, this is what he told you, this is what he saw, this is what we still need to work on, because he saw that you're good at this, but you need to fix this to be able to do that." But as far as role models for me, I would say, so actually you actually interviewed her, Stacey Copeland, is a huge role model for me. When I first started boxing, she was already at the top of the amateur game, and I remember watching her videos on YouTube, and I was just like, man, this girl's a little, like, she's refined, but she's aggressive, and she's a bit of a bull, but she's like, she boxes beautifully, like, and and so I actually met her about 4 years ago for the first time we sparred. I was starstruck. I think that was like the only time I was starstruck, was when I got to be in the ring with her. And then now we've become good friends, and I went over there last year and sparred with her at her gym. But she's such a great person, and
Stacey's I don't know her personally. I was there at her first fight and watched her, and that was the fight that won me over on women's boxing. It was such a tough fight. She was with a girl called Stacey Smith, who was at my club. And but I've seen Stacey around, and I interviewed her. Just watch her Facebook or Instagram. She's such an inspirational girl for women's sport, not just women's boxing. And she's got her own radio show, I think, at the moment over here.
Yeah, and like with someone like Stacey, the reason why I look up to her so much is just that she's such a great boxer, but she never talks about how great she is for first. Like, she'll never tell you that she's good. And the other thing is that she focuses so much on leveraging other great females. She does what she can to help anybody. Like, and she's actually like donated money when I was raising money to go to a tournament in Bulgaria. Like, things like that, where it's like, you don't have to do that, but she's willing to do it. And to be a female who's currently still fighting, but wanting to leverage other female boxers as opposed to yourself, to me, that is so commendable. And it's just such a testament to her character. And that's, to me, why she's a role model.
And we're seeing that all over female boxing. In the UK, obviously, it's getting very big over here. I mean, but the respect we're seeing between the ladies, Cecilia Breakhouse the other night, accepted defeat, fantastic. What a role model. You know, Katie Taylor is one of my best boxers. Forget male, female, she's one of my favourite boxers. And Natasha Jonas against Terry Harper, again, the respect. You know, the men could learn a lot from this, couldn't they?
Oh, I definitely agree with you. It's funny, actually, because there are a few girls who, you know, they're trying to bring trash talking in to women's boxing. And I think it's to draw fans in. I don't want to say it's off-putting, but even with the guys, sometimes when they start really going at each other, like, I don't like that. To me, like, it's a sport, and when you're in the ring, like, there are no friends. You know, I've actually fought people who are friends of mine, and we're still friends now. So there are no friends in the ring, but I think it's what you say before the fight and after the fight that really dictates who you are as a person. Do what you want in the ring and be like commendable once the final bell goes and before, you know, the first one happens. But yeah, I think that like just the level of respect between the women right now, like, to me, that smile that Cecilia Brækhus had after she lost, honestly, like, I don't think she lost that fight. I thought it was so close. Really could have gone either way. But how humble she was insane. Like, the woman hasn't lost a fight in 13 years. She doesn't even know what it feels like to lose. And yet she reacted pretty much the same way when she lost as she does when she wins.
It was like she wasn't looking inwardly at her own loss. She was looking at the success for women's boxing. That headlining a bill.
Yeah, and she had, she had tweeted out actually beforehand. They were talking about how like the women were the main event on the DAZN card, and then Cecilia Brækhus actually tweeted out. She was like, "Yeah, now if only we could get paid the same." And so to me, like, that is, you know, she's not just fighting for herself, because if she, like, honestly, if she was, she wouldn't have taken all the fights she's taken. She's probably not making that much money. She's fighting for the women who are coming up over the course of the next like 10 years, so that we can one day make good money to do what the men do, to put on the same kind of show, right? And so to me, like, these girls now who are like Cecilia Brækhus, and even, you know, the Michaela Mayers, the Katie Taylors, these girls who came out of the amateur system in like 2012, 2016, they're still paving the way for us, for that future generation to actually be able to, you know, be held in the same regard as the men. And I do think that the level of sportsmanship between the women is what's going to elevate that to the next level.
Now, my final question for you, Katie, is I had a few more, but we've talked too long, so I can't be it.
Sorry, I'm a bit of a chatterbox.
But my final question is, why do you love boxing? What's kept you addicted to the sport?
It's just, I think it's that I'm not good at it naturally. That's what it is. It's like a lot of things in my, like, school came so easy to me. I could sleep during class and get A+. Like, I wouldn't, like, just very easy. Basketball came so easy to me. It's second nature. A lot of different sports were just easy, and boxing was not. And that's what keeps me addicted to it, where it's every single day I go in the gym and I'm like, you need to work your absolute hardest, because you're like, and I don't tell myself that I'm not naturally good at it, but I'm like, you need to work hard. And it's that constant have to, like, hard work. And honestly, I remember reading something from Katie Taylor where they asked her after she won like her 5th world title, like, how she feels about it. And she's like, I don't know, I get a gold medal, I go home, I put it in a box, and then I just move on to the next one. And that's something I've always done throughout my boxing, where I don't dwell on things I've done, whether it's a loss or a win, because to me, there's always so much more to do. And that's what keeps me addicted, is that if I keep working hard, I will keep being successful. And success isn't just measured in gold medals. Success is measured in personal growth within the ring, development within the sport, if I'm impacting other people in a positive way. So that's what really pulls me into the sport, is just that constant state of growth and development.
Which you are, because I'm at amateur clubs where young girls there, and they're watching girls like yourself, you know, like Stacey Copeland, Chantel Cameron, you know, the list goes on, and they're looking up to you, and they're not watching the men as much anymore, they're watching you and listening to you. So you are role models now. Yeah,
it's, you know, and that's something I always try to tell myself, is that there's always someone watching, always. And because I do it when I'm like, if I'm at the track and I'm doing sprints, I'm watching. Like if there's someone else there who's like working really hard, I don't care if they're fast or not. If they're working hard, I'm watching them and I'm like, that person's working hard, so I need to work hard. And so then I always turn that around and just remind myself, there's always somebody watching. And, you know, not just give the best representation of yourself, but why not, you know, work hard so that you can inspire somebody else? Why not, you know, kind of allow that positive energy to just transcend into other people?
Well, thank you very much for that, Katie. I wish you nothing but the best with your amateur career and the pro career after that. And good luck, and thank you so much for doing this.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.